Welcome, welcome. My name is Liane, and I am blessed this Tuesday morning to be a part of this session. Today we are going to talk about time. It's something that has been on my mind for quite a long time. I shared it with my church last year in December, and this morning I just felt the urge, to speak more about it, to create a short PowerPoint and to share it with you. So I'm coming with you on this great journey on time, and I hope that you have the time to sit and listen carefully to what the Lord is saying to his church at such a time as this. Okay? I bless him. I'm calling all the way from the United Kingdom, the land where God lives. A bit chilly today. The weather is not, too sunny, but even in this lockdown, we are blessing the Lord. So let's start this conversation without further ado. Talking about the gifts of life, just as a foundation of what I am about to speak. We have been offered many gifts in this lifetime. Life in itself, waking up in the morning and, breathing. Waking up in the morning and, seeing your loved ones. Waking up in the morning and being able to move about. This is a gift of life. Health is a precious, precious gift. Your family, your friends, your work, your vocation. Now people are appreciating the work that they had. Before it, your work used to be so boring. You could not wait for the weekend, in order for you to not go to work. But now I hear people are just waiting to go back. Being in this season of where everything is locked down is a bit challenging. And wherever you may be, I pray that God gives you the grace. I pray that God gives you the strength to carry on. Peace is another gift of life, and there are resources. There are, you don't value peace until you've lived in a war-torn country, until you hear planes flying low in the middle of the night, bombs going off, gunshots. Until peace is taken away, you will not appreciate it. So even for those who are in a place of turmoil, a place of uncertainty, I pray that the peace of God will be with you. Other resources, since we are talking about gifts here, a sound mind, strength, a favorable location, inheritance, profits from a business or vocation, money, has its, double-edged sword. So depending on how you view it, others have, misused it, and it has not been a blessing but a curse. But the best gift, or the greatest gift of life, is time. And now we are in a season where we have time. Okay. And I'd like to read Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It says, there is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Social distancing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. Time analysis. So let me even just, move this a little bit more so that you can see my slides in a clearer version. We wish we had more time. This was the song of 1990s to all 2019. I wish I had time for this. I wish I had time for vacation. I wish I had time for my family. I wish I had time to rest. I wish I had time to save. I wish I had time to invest. If you look at time, And I did quite a good study on it, and I'll just share a little bit of my findings. This is all privy, you're all privy to this information. There are 24 hours in a day, we agree. In a month of 30 days, there are 24 times 30, 72 hours a month. Okay. Multiplying that by 12, you get 8,760 hours in a year. Okay. Every single person has the same 24 hours, the same months, the same night and day, the same sunrise and sunset. So we have all been equalized in matters of time. Don't forget, I said time is one of the greatest gifts of life. Okay. Average time to sleep, even as physicians recommend, 6 to 8 hours. If you look at the average time to prepare a meal, depending on what you're making, of course, average time to prepare a meal, sit down and eat it, including meal prep, 2 hours. Let's give or take 2 hours. I'm not talking about lavish gourmet 3-course meals that take almost a whole day to prepare. I'm just saying day-to-day activity. If you round it up, sometimes you're just going to grab a sandwich, 30 minutes, 15 minutes. There are times that you take an hour. So just averaging it all out, an hour to 2 for meal prep and eating your wonderful meal in a day, 2 hours. Preparation, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, dressing up, ironing your clothes, polishing your shoes, 1 hour a day. Okay, give or take the days that you're at home on a weekend. Travel times, if you're moving from point A to point B, minimum, depending on where you're going. Of course, there's a 5-minute walk to your workplace if you're within the vicinity. But if you average it out per week, maybe 30 to 45 minutes, give or take. Of course, those of you who work from home, a minute, okay? So I'm just working with averages, the average population. Average movie times for a good movie, an hour and a half. Really, really good movies, you can get to up to 2 hours, 2.5 hours, yeah? A show, 30 minutes, sitcom, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, all right? Then in comes your social media, Facebook, and I'll add telephone calls, emails, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all these little things. If you can just average it out, it's fair to say about 2 hours a day. Whether or not you have Facebook or not, at least looking at your messages on the phone, WhatsApp calls, okay, even at work. So let's average it out to 2 hours, okay? Now, we all have 24 hours a day. If you're sleeping 8 hours a day, okay, in a month, you'll have slept 240 hours. In a year, you have slept 2,880 hours. If you work an 8-hour job, let's say, give or take a couple of weekends where you're not working, it comes up to, again, 2,880 hours in a year. So you have 8 hours remaining in your day where you're traveling, you're having your breaks. Maybe you waste an hour or 2 daydreaming, maybe reading the newspaper, reading a book or something, okay? So you have 8 hours to do whatever you need to do outside of sleep and outside of work. And work including studies, okay? Because maybe not everybody is working. There's some of you who are in high school or college or what have you. So now, if we calculate the time outside of work, okay, outside of work, you have your 2,880 hours of sleep. You have your hours of travel, traffic, walking, saying you're doing it an hour a day, okay, including exercise, all right, 730 hours spent on social media if you are on it for 2 hours a day. And now I've put, remember I said your phone calls, your email, okay? Another 730 if you're taking 2 hours a day for your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all combined, okay? Another 365 hours a year if you're just wasting at least an hour a day doing nothing. So your time outside of work a year, inclusive of all these little things I have said, comes to 5,072 hours. if you calculate how many months this is, because in 1 month there are 720 hours, so in 7 months, okay, so you are actually wasting a total of 7 months doing necessary things. So you're actually working for 5 months, because there are 12 months in a year. Okay, you're actually working for 5 months, and I put here 3 months because this is someone who is maybe very organized with their time. A very organized person still works, okay, 8 hours a day, give or take the weekends, etc. Yeah, but an organized person is still spending 7 months of time outside their work. Now, I'm hoping you're working for yourself, but if you're working for the government and depending on a pension scheme or your 401k, then it gets to be a bit tricky, because what time do you have here for your vision? What time do you have in creation? What time do you have in investing in the life of somebody else? Okay, so now it all adds up. And even the social media aspect, there are people who spend hours on social media, like 4 hours a day. If you're spending 4 hours a day, you better double that up, okay, to 1,460 hours a year on just social media. Okay, that's actually 2 months, okay, of time just wasted. So now when we ask ourselves, where did the time go? Why am I always running out of time? Well, now this season has equalized us. About 80% of us are now in lockdown, especially if you're not in the healthcare or in the front line, or you are in a lockdown and you're given 24 hours. Your time has been stopped, reset. Okay. How are you defining this time that you have? In fact, are you defining it as time saving, time wasting? Is it a lockdown? Is it a physical lockdown? Yes, it is. Okay, in most part of the world, it's a physical lockdown, but a physical lockdown does not mean a mental lockdown. If you define this time as a time to rest, you will rest. If you define this time as a time to create, you will create. If you define this time as a time to invest, you will invest. If you define this time as a time to work, you will find something to do. Okay? How is God defining this lockdown? Has He defined it the way we are defining it? Is He calling it a dry season, a season of death? Is He calling it a rest season? If we can only define our times from God's perspective, then we will start to see things the way God does. Seeing things the way God does, by the way, is an absolute choice. It is not a special gift given to those who tithe or given to those who offer their gifts and possessions to the poor. It is a choice. Perspective is a choice. What do you see? What do you choose to see in this picture? Do you see a tree? Do you see some shrubs? Okay. Is this water or is this cobblestone? Are those buildings? You can choose to make them a university. You can choose them to make them an apartment complex. What do you see? Do you see the man? Do you see his eyes? Do you see his nose and his mouth? Do you see a river? Do you see a boat in the river? What do you see? The world is seeing a lockdown, a shutdown, a breakdown in economy. What is God seeing? What do you see? If you see a tiger, you will run because he looks like an angry tiger. Here are his eyes, okay? Here is his nose and his frown, right? And here is his big right paw coming towards you. But do you see the tree? Do you see another tree? Do you see another tree here? Do you see another tiger at rest? If you see the forest, you will rest. If you see the tiger, you will run. Now look at this season. People saw it as an opportunity to buy toilet paper in bulk and sell it on eBay for double the price. Others found toilet paper rolls being sold at £10 per piece and invested tons of money in buying toilet paper. Others went to the stores and filled their pantries with food. Others bought hand sanitizers. Others continued life as usual. I'll use the toilet paper that I have until it's over and then I can improvise. I'll continue to use soap and water to clean my hands. Did I invest in a lot of hand sanitizer, masks, all these things? Absolutely not. That's not my order of life. Now the season has changed, and of course sometimes we have to change with the season, because if you run outside and it's winter time and you only have a t-shirt, you're going to freeze to death. Okay, so your perspective determines your action. What you perceive and you cycle inside your mind and you accept in your heart, that is what your hands and your feet will do. What do you see? Do you see the old woman? Here is her nose, okay? She has dark hair and a scarf over her hair, and maybe a fur coat. She looks sad and she's looking on the floor. This is the one of her nostrils, okay? Do you see the old woman? Or do you see the young woman looking away? This is her nose, this is her eyelash, this is her hair, the feather is also on her hair, and she has a white scarf also and is wearing a fur coat. What do you see? I'd like to read Mark chapter 8, verse 22 to 26, because there is a story of a blind man. As Jesus was in Bethsaida, there's a man who was blind, and I really love Jesus and his journey on this earth. And one of the biggest things that really makes me admire him is his restoration of vision. His focus was to restore vision of who? Men. Because once you restore the vision of the man in the land, most of the positions, I'm not trying to bring the big debate of men being in charge and taking over everything, but the societies that we live, most of the men are in positions of authority. Of course, we are getting countries where we have female presidents, etc, CEO companies being female, so that's fine. But overall, in general, the big percentage of those who rule are the men. And so the focus of Christ was to restore the vision of the man, because most of the time he is in a position of authority. And if the driver cannot see, everyone in the car is in danger. Okay, so let's read this story about the man in Bethsaida. So, and he cometh to Bethsaida, and I'm reading from the King James Version. And they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. After that he put his hands again on his eyes, and made him look up, and he was restored, and saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. If I was to simplify this, in a paragraph or so, Jesus has come to a town where there's a blind man, okay? Instead of just touching his hands or placing his hands over his eyes, he takes him out of the town to heal him. He isolates him for healing. Sometimes you need to be alone to be healed. Sometimes you need to be away from the crowds to get your healing. And once he takes him away from the people, he spits on his eyes and puts his hands on him, and he asks him, what do you see? After being touched by God, what do you see? And there are very many philosophers or very many church scholars who have debated on this scripture and have said that, why did it take Jesus Christ 2 touches in order to heal the vision? Didn't he heal him correctly the first time? And after he touched him, why did he ask him, what do you see? To verify his perspective. Okay. And I absolutely love one of the revelations I heard about this scripture is when Jesus Christ touches the blind man, places his eyes on him and asks him, what do you see? I can talk about this all day. I absolutely love this miracle. He touches his eyes and says to him, what do you see? And he says, I see men as trees. Wow. But if you have had a journey in Christ for a long time, you or not even just for a long time, a deeper understanding of Christ, you will understand that men indeed are trees. We are from a seed that was planted into the ground, and we produce fruit. There are men who produce good fruit. There are men who produce bad fruit. And if you venture deep into scripture, there is one place in the Bible where there is a parable of a man whose trees are not producing fruit. And the farmer or the man wants to cut down the tree from the stem, but there is a plead from the son of the farmer saying, Father, give them more time, please. Give them time to produce fruit. This is a fantastic, in fact, the parable behind this is God being the Father, and it is the end of time where he has come for his church, and it is time for us to go into everlasting glory. And it is the sift of the wheat and the weeds. It's the sift in the harvest of the good and the bad, the sheep and the goats. Okay, and how is the separation being made? According to fruits. So we have all been given time on this earth to be planted, to grow, and to produce fruit. And now this man has been touched by Jesus Christ, and he is seeing men as they really are. That is how I choose to interpret this scripture. Many say, oh, maybe he needed to see really clearly as how men are. Okay. As a physical form with a head, arms, feet, their skin tone, their eyes, their teeth, their nose. But I would have preferred to keep the sight of a man as a tree. That way you can see a man from the state of his heart, from the state of where his source is and the type of fruit he is producing. Absolute parable. I wish I had more time to discuss it and to really dissect it. And so now he asks him, what do you see? I see the men as trees. And then he's like, oh, maybe I have given this man a little bit too much vision. This is my interpretation. By all means, you can have your interpretation of maybe incomplete eyesight, and then afterwards the second touch healed him. it's well and good. But in the end, this man sees every man clearly. And Jesus Christ tells him, please do not go back to your house. Don't go back to the town. Don't go back to the crowds. Go away. Go straight. Sorry, he sent him away to his house. He says, go to your home. Don't go back into the crowds. And don't tell it to anyone in the town. So the isolation is to continue with the eyesight being restored. Think about that. Isolation for healing, and after the healing, continued isolation. Isolation. In the crowds, this man was blind. Jesus had to isolate him from the crowds that were keeping him blind. He takes him out of the town, heals him, and says, go to your home. Don't go back to the crowds. I hope you can hear the message in the message. In this isolation, or in this separation, in this season, we have been isolated. Will you go back to the town that keeps you blind? Will you go back to the crowds that are comfortable with your blindness? It takes a stranger to come into Bethsaida, the stranger being Jesus Christ, to take you out of your comfort zone and put you in a new place. Open your eyes and tell you, now go into your home with a restored vision. There are things for you to see inside your home that need a restored vision. This is wonderful. You think this lockdown is a bad thing? It is time away from the town, that you may be healed, that your vision may be restored, and for you to remain with your restored vision and see the gifts and the glory in the places that you assumed. You thought that the gifts of life are outside your home. Maybe this lockdown is to show you everything that you need, you have been ignoring all this time. Everything that you need is in the home. All you needed was to have a change of perspective. So is it time wasted or is it time gained? And many people have come to a great realization in this season. People have invented new ways of dealing with their children. Okay, people have invented teaching courses online. Others have realized they've had gifts that died along the way. Others have realized, goodness, I don't need to go back to my 9-to-5 job. I have skills in reaching more people in the security of my living room. Others have gone back to exercise. Relationships have been restored. Others have broken up. They've realized, my goodness, my eyes have been opened. Who have I been living with all this time? Do I need to continue in this? There is a lot of healing that is going on in this isolation. It is your perspective. Even when they say the numbers are increasing, it is very interesting, because like even here in the UK, they said maybe, I think over 100,000 people have been tested positive for the COVID, and up to date, maybe 30,000 people have died. The 70,000, give or take, some are still struggling with symptoms, okay? But in the most part, most people have gone through this fire of sickness and have come out on the other side. I hope you will come out from this lockdown with an open mind, for it is better to be in a physical lockdown but with an open mind than to remain physically free and mentally bound. And I believe this is how the world was before this virus attacked. We thought we were free, but we were in a system that locked us down. And now it took a physical lockdown for us to be healed and to be restored, and now to use our eyes and our perspective to see things clearly. I hope after this lockdown you will not go back to the crowds and be blinded again to back to a sickness that has taken months to heal you from. What do you see? Do you focus on the sands, on just the mundaneness of this pathway? Do you see the forest? Do you see the skies? What do you see? What do you see? Are you in the desert with blue skies that are above? Are you in a place with dry grass? Does this picture invoke the emotion of sadness or happiness? Would you want to be here? How will you prepare for this place that you see? Maybe some of you will decide to get a big liter of water. Okay. Some of you will decide to get a big hat. Others will be a bit sad and say, oh gosh, will I plant in this area? What will I do? Look at the only thing that grows here is just grass. So you are determining your work because you are seeing what has happened before you. You're determining your steps based on your sight. Would you wear a hoodie in this area? Would you wear a light shirt? From your perspective, you will decide the steps to take. Now, if you change your perspective, then I told you, your feet will change. You did not know you were under water. You thought you were in the desert. Perspective. Just because the ground was sandy and the area above was blue, it doesn't mean that it was the sky. It was a beautiful, clear day under water. And those were some reeds growing underwater. So you could think you're in a drought, but you're in a place of plenty. You could think that you're in a famine, but you're in a place of harvest. In that desert, you were thinking of bringing a liter of water and bringing a hat. Yet, you have water around you. You are thinking you needed shoes and maybe you needed flippers to help you swim. Do you see how this lockdown will separate many according to perspective? And I said, you would rather be physically locked down and mentally free than be mentally locked down and physically free. So in this lockdown, will you gain time or will you lose time? Will you use your 24 hours to sleep, to buy more Netflix and Amazon Prime videos? Okay, there will always be someone who wants to exchange your resource. If you have money, you will always have things to buy. If you have time, if you think of your time as currency, you need to look and see who wants to exchange your currency. There are others who cannot wait for this lockdown to be over, and there are others who are praying it continues because they understand I am being given time to shape up my life, to change my perspective, to gather my things together so that when the doors open, I will be ready to go. I will be given time to catch up. Some businesses now are educating their personnel, sending them, their managers back to school to improve in knowledge so that when everything opens up again, it will be a new people coming back to work and not just your average Joes. I am telling you, if you change your perspective in these times of the COVID-19, you will come out a different person. Please hear what the Lord is saying to the church. What do you see? Do you see a frog? I see a frog. Okay, I see a frog. But are you willing to keep your perspective to just only see a frog. Sometimes you need to turn the picture. So that was the same frog. The same frog in a vertical position, okay? If you turn this picture horizontally, or if you just turn your head, tilt your head to the right, you will see a horse. If you add a little color to the picture, you will be able to see, oh, if I turn my head to the left, I can see the frog. If I turn my head to the right, I can see the horse. Are you willing to do a bit of work to change your perspective? Are you willing to add a little bit more color? Are you willing to tilt your head? Are you willing to look at pictures from down up or up down? Are you willing to waste this time, or are you willing to invest this time? Do not accept the norm. Just because I gave you this picture in the upright manner doesn't mean you have to look at this picture in that plane of sight. Change. I really hope that these words settle deep in your heart. I really hope that you choose to look at this season from the perspective of God. I really hope that you use this time wisely. Until I see you again, my name is Mian, and this is Kingdom Design. God bless you, God keep you, and redeem your